Okay, so this is Maya Kosian. She's going to be our first presenter. So she's going to give a little bit of a background of Earth economics and just what she does there. Maya's our chief economist, so I'll let her introduce herself. Maya.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me in the back clearly? Super. Okay. Well, like Lola said, my name is Maya Kosian, and I've been with Earth Economics for 8 years now. Sorry David Back couldn't present today. He was supposed to be the first presenter, but something came up. And I hope that I give the caliber, because people actually are paying us a couple of thousands of dollars for Dave to speak. They're not paying anywhere near that for me to speak, so I will do my best. My type of personality, I like to focus on the details, the weeds, so I get into the methodology. I like to talk about projects with our clients. So when I switched with Dave, and I had to give a big picture, I said, okay, I haven't done this in a while, but I'm excited to kind of give the big picture of ecological economics. And so half the presentation will be about ecological economics and a few principles in that field. And then the other half, I'm going to talk about my experience working for Earth Economics, and just keep note that the focus of our work is just a branch of the overall field of ecological economics. So half of what I'm going to talk about is no way encompassing the whole field of ecological economics. So let's begin. I thought I would start with what does it mean? What does ecological economics mean? If you're not familiar, the Greek root word for both ecology and economy is oikos, which means household. And next slide, where ecology means the study of the household. And if you think of planet Earth as our household, it's the study of the household. And economics is the management of that household. Just before I get into, so overall ecological economics is the management of the household based on the knowledge of that same study, of that same household. Now, traditional economics, the definition of economics is to allocate scarce resources among alternative desirable ends. That's the definition in a standard textbook in most universities in the U.S. In this textbook that you're reading, they're going to ask other questions before you even get to that question. First, what are our scarce resources to allocate? Do we have an infinity of resources to allocate, or do we actually have a limit? And I'll get to that in one of the principles. And also, what are our alternative desirable ends? You'll notice that there are some common human aspirations in the past, today, and in the future that are common, and these are really our goals. And that's what ecological economics is about. There's 4 principles, 4 goals that I will get into, which I believe is the next slide. But before I get there, let's first focus on the microeconomic scale. So you may or may not know, microeconomics is basically the economy between households and firms. Look at how the money exchanges between the two. And we look at things like supply and demand. But in the 1930s, we had the Great Depression. And that was the only economics that was being used at the time. And we didn't know how many people were employed at the time. We did not know how much stuff was produced in the 1930s. And that's a problem when you don't measure these type of things. Things like the Great Depression. And this is actually Seattle. You can see Smith Tower at the upper right-hand corner there. So in the 1930s, after that, Bretton Woods occurred, and people got together and said, well, we need new measures, we need new institutions. So that's where macroeconomics comes in. So now we have the GDP, gross domestic product, which is an indicator. Actually, I don't know the knowledge of economics. I guess, can you just show of hands who has taken econ course? Okay, so what I'm going through is pretty basic. Okay, good. Purpose of this is to explain where we get the name Earth economics. So now that we have GDP, we know how many people are unemployed. It has worked out for us. This is the same area in Seattle, except Smith Tower is no longer the tallest building in Seattle. Today, though, we are confronting similar issues where we are not measuring certain things like our natural capital. We are not measuring, we're using same institutions from the 1930s, and we think it's time for new economics, earth economics. So that's where our name really comes from. From micro to macro. Our mission is really to shift investment, change policy towards more sustainable practices, and we thought earth economics really encompassed that mission and that goal. So this is one key principle that, I'm not showing you this to provide a lesson. This is something that we showed to people, I think, 10 years ago plus, and this was like, oh wow, this is a huge concept, and I don't think that's the case now, but this is what we used to use in a lot of our slides, which we don't really use anymore, where it used to be the mindset that the environment was a subset of the economy, which is the little thing, and that the economy was the big thing, if you will. And then, we would show actually our economy is dependent on the environment. It's actually a subset system of the environment. And so that was one key concept that we showed. The second concept was just focus on really the empty world versus full world. And I believe this is in one of the early chapters in the Daly and Farley book. So this kind of touches on a couple items. So the one I really wanted to talk about was growth. I mentioned gross domestic product. A lot of countries, their goal is to increase the gross domestic product growth. Well, the problem with having growth being your goal in itself, and you don't consider limitations to the world, in the past we lived in a small economy situation. We weren't inputting very many resources and energy into the economy. There were some sinks and waste, but not as much. But as our economy grew, see the white box? We're pushing against the limits, and we're just producing more stuff, we're growing more stuff. But how many of you have seen Story of Stuff, Amy Leonard's video? She was a co-founder of Earth Economics. She would say, yeah, more stuff isn't going to make you happier, it's not good for our environment, and we're pushing against our limits. And that this is another